How's that? I knew when I saw Kill Sharion was calling that this would happen. I don't know why it does that. For some reason, it just like decides to turn off the soundboard without me asking in. How long does it until he realizes? Well, as long as it took for for me to see Kill Sharion calling me on the phone this morning. Good morning, everybody. God, that's so embarrassing. Shall we start over again? Here we go. Rise of the Trad Dads. Liberal comedian Bill Maher on his weekend show called for a return to traditional parenting. No more of this gentle parenting crap. Which I find fascinating because Bill Maher, of course, is not a father, but I am technically because I'm pro-life, and little baby Hazel will be born in a month. Steffi Liberty for Liberty says, send in rants so we can afford a producer. Yes, exactly. Thank you, Steffi. Yeah, see, a producer would have fixed that while I was ranting. But, you know, being a real man, I know that I have to wear many hats, do as much as I can. And speaking of many hats, I have a video of a guy who got a hat knocked off his head or got it flicked by another man at an event over the weekend. And then he proceeded to clean the clock of the guy who flicked his hat, which I thought was interesting. But it's an important lesson that my father taught me as a very young man, a legitimate lesson. If you're a young man and you have a good father will tell you that you should never touch another man's hat, or you can consider them, might as well just be fighting words. Quantum Kitty, thanks for the donation. We appreciate it. We had a fantastic baby shower over the weekend. Speaking of being a dad, and I got to spend time with my dad, and it was a co-ed baby shower, so we had a wonderful time. And we opened all of the gifts, and many of them were sent by you, Wake Up America show fans and friends. Thank you so much. I tried to upload the little speech that I gave during the baby shower yesterday, but I was going to play it for you guys because I specifically mentioned you all who have been so supportive of us, not only our friends and family who are there in person, who have been, monthly supporters of the Wake Up America show, but people like yourself who went to our baby registry and without even asking, bought us items on our baby registry to help for the arrival of our first child, Hazel Rose Peterson, coming soon to a Wake Up America show near you. But I did mention you all in the speech. I'll try and upload it for you all later and post it on my social media. But I made sure to call out many of you by name and to let you all know how grateful Stephanie and I are. One of the questions that I get quite frequently about the birth of my first child is, are you scared? Are you nervous? All of that. And in my speech, this is what I said. I said, I'm actually not scared. I'm not nervous. I'm more excited than anything. One, because I know we've taken all the precautions that we need in order to ensure the safety for a healthy baby, healthy delivery, right? No smoking, no drinking, lots of exercise, drinking lots of water. Stephanie's really been staying in shape and doing a great job, although karate is now starting to become untenable at this point. But I said I wasn't scared and I wasn't afraid. I wasn't really, maybe a little nervous, right? Like any dad might be, but I wasn't afraid because I have you, right? We have you. We have a community of people. And I was talking to the people who were there, obviously, but I was also specifically thinking about you guys, the friends and fans of the Wake Up America show. Many of you who were there with us in spirit, who really, and I posted some pictures and I know you all appreciated that. But the truth is, Stephanie and I were talking about this the other day when we were on a walk, that the majority of the gifts and the support that came in were from people who were fans and friends of the Wake Up America show. And we recognize that. And we wanted to let you know how much we appreciate you all for all of your generosity and kindness. The Rumble rants, the purchases at apforlibertyshop.com, and many of you just went straight to our registry and bought us things like car seats and bottles and bibs and things like that from our registry. So we are so grateful to you all. We just wanted to let you know that you may not have been there with us in person, but you were definitely there with us in spirit, and you definitely got shout outs for being such big supporters of us. So I'm not afraid to become a father soon, because I know not only do I have those people who are part of that community who are there in person, but I know that we have you all as well. So thank you very much for your generosity. We love you very much. Hazel will certainly be well taken care of. And we have everything that we need pretty much to get ourselves started. But if you want to help support the Wake Up America show going into the future, of course, maybe contribute to that Baby Hazel College Fund, you can unlock today's bonus content instead of watching commercials. If we raise at least $60 by the end of the show, you're going to see what today's political mini documentary is. And it's a lot more fun than watching commercials when we transition from guest to guest. And we've got three incredible guests this morning. Mark McCluskey at 7:30. At 8 o'clock this morning, we're going to speak to John Miltimore about the indispensable male. God bless him. We're looking forward to that. At 8:30 a.m. Central Time today, we're going to hear from Jonathan Williams, and he is at the American Legislative Exchange Council to talk about how Joe Biden is threatening to get rid of the Donald Trump tax cuts.
No,
yeah.
God! No, God, please, no!
You hate to see it, but you know what? This is Biden's America, at least until we elect Donald Trump.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word.
What is it, Joe?
I was going to put him.
Thank you to Adam Karabachi this morning for reposting us over there on X. If you're on X or on Rumble, no matter where you're watching us this morning, do click that like button. And if it's your first time watching the Wake Up America show and you are on Rumble, don't forget to click that follow button before you leave today. You can send us a text at 573-319-1586. Again, the text lines are open. Let us know what's on your mind at 573-319-1586. Boy, we had a great segment last week when we had on Aaron Sepulveda. The whole Javier Milei stuff blew up over the weekend, and everybody was loving our coverage. So if you missed our conversation on Friday explaining the bases law that was passed through the Argentine legislature, it's fantastic news. We went through it, made it really simple, nice and clean, 30-minute interview with Aaron Sepulveda. Check out that interview from Friday. All right, so what does it mean to be a good dad? Now, I think obviously I know because I had a terrific father. I had a great example for myself, and I think I can show you pretty quick here an example of a bad father. Take a look at this gentleman right here. Well, maybe I shouldn't call him a gentleman. Looks like a regular guy out on a Walmart shopping trip with his daughter. Actually, it turns out it's a bank robber. This is a man walking out with his child after being at Walmart. The FBI says what we're looking at here is actually a bank robbery suspect who brought a small child to the heist and is making his getaway. Oh, yeah. So here's your example of your modern bad. How did you know that he was a bad dad? Well, he was wearing cargo shorts.
No, God!
Just kidding. Just kidding. I love cargo shorts. Although as I've gotten a little bit bigger these days, I've had to go to the stretchy pants, the basketball pants, as you know how it is when you start to get big like that. But don't worry, Stephanie got me a Fitbit yesterday as a Father's Day gift, so the battle of the bulge has begun. We're going to start to slim it down, man. Oh, sweet. Look at that straw sweet. This is why I'm fat. Stephanie's new hustling and homemaking video coming out today. Strawberry jam, which of course you can always view those a day early if you watch us over on our locals page here. Okay, what did you see this? Joe Biden had to be ushered off stage by Barack Obama at a fundraiser over the weekend. Here's Joe Biden. Here's Barack Obama. They're raising money with Jimmy Fallon over there. Jimmy Kimmel. What's the difference? Joe Biden. Here he is. He's kind of frozen there. He's like, what do I do? What am I doing? Where do I go? And here's Barry O. Here we go. Where are you going, Joe? There. Okay, this way. There you go. That's Joe Biden there, right? Speaking of pooping your pants. If pooping your pants was cool, consider me Miles Davis. It's been 40 years to the day. Is it 40 or 30 years? Good God. Yeah, 40 years to the day since this campaign ad. So speaking about a great father, since this campaign advertisement came out.
The price of even a small home could be $200,000. And what about their parents trying to make ends meet right now? To stop inflation, we've got to put a ceiling on federal spending. We've got to crack down on waste, and we must lower our tax rates to encourage individual productivity. In California, where I was governor for 8 years, we went from near bankruptcy to financial help. We gave the taxpayers billions of dollars in tax relief, and we met the needs of our people. If we're going to stop inflation, we must do it now, not with bigger government, It takes better government. That's what we owe ourselves and our children. That's why I'm running for president.
Only one man has the proven experience we need. Ronald Reagan for president. Let's make America great again.
Make America great again? Seems like a good idea. I wonder where you got that one. How many years has it been since this happened? 8 years ago today that we saw that, that Mr. Trump came down the elevator? Gotta watch out for those, for that audio there. And looky, there he is. Our once and future president coming down the escalator. The Simpsons predicted this. There it is. Donald Trump running for president of the United States, announcing that 8 years ago today. Boom. Heading down the escalator. And then there was the day that he gave his epic speech. All right, let's hear what Bill Maher had to say this weekend about gentle parenting. And thank you, Quest Fanning, for that donation, who averages, well, it's easy to get 12,500 steps a day when you live in New York City there. Come on, Quest. Thanks for the donation. Good morning, John. All right, what did Bill Maher have to say about Father's
finally,
Day?
new rule this Father's Day. If you really want to give your father something he'll treasure forever, give him permission to be a dad like dads used to be. And before you start in with, but Bill, what do you know about it? You're not a parent. Yeah.
Here comes some bad words, FYI. If you have little children, just to understand there might be a curse word here or there. There's a little bit of explicitness in this, but you know what? Dads say bad word. We're going to allow ourselves to hear the bad words because we're men, and we're going to be treated like men.
I don't give blowjobs either, but I can tell when someone is doing it wrong. So no, I don't have kids, but I sit next to yours at restaurants. I see parents in stores kowtowing to brats like they're congressmen groveling before Trump. I've seen a 7-year-old ram a shopping cart into someone's coccyx and the parent just shrugs and gives a look like, kids, what are you going to do?
Yeah, no, that would never happen when I was a kid. If I had rammed a shopping cart into the back of somebody's legs when I was a kid at a grocery store, my mother would have apologized profusely, forced me to apologize, and it's possible I would have gotten a swat, but it wouldn't have happened because obviously I would have apologized and I would never do something like that on purpose. But I see kids doing things like this to annoy strangers on purpose, and their parents do nothing about it, right? He's talking about, excuse me, gentle parenting.
Raise them right. That's what you can do.
Yeah.
For as long as I've had a television show, the issue of parents overindulging their children has been a topic of discussion. So it's not like it's new. But it hasn't gotten better either. We were talking about trophy syndrome in 1993. And then it was helicopter parenting. And then bulldozer parenting. And now we have gentle parenting, or is this a far more...
Oh, no. I screwed that up. Sorry.
And then it was helicopter parenting, and then bulldozer parenting. And now we have gentle parenting.
So helicopter parenting, I think probably everybody knows, right? Where that's like you're hovering over your children all the time. Bulldozer parenting is where you like go out in front of your children and you like knock down any obstacles that might be in their way to make their journey so much easier or smoother when they really need to be able to face challenges in order to define who they are. And then, of course, now we're at this gentle parenting stuff, which you see this all the time. Parents who are just overly permissive with their kids and there's no discipline, right? Like Stephanie and I have already had these conversations, and I think it works best the way my parents did it, where my mother was the first line of discipline. And it was like, if my mother disciplined us, like you knew, don't get out of line or mom would discipline you in some way or another. But then there was like, my dad was like the artillery, right? And if mom had to call in the artillery, you knew you were in some deep shit. So you don't want to cross the line with mom, because if mom had to call in the artillery, dad would show up and you did not want to get punished by dad. So there's escalating layers of discipline. And I think that makes sense, right? Let mom sort of like say, darling, like let's try the nice way. Let's try it first. But there should be, the paddle is always waiting
Or as
in
it
the
used to be known,
behind the
negotiating
scenes.
with terrorists. British author Sarah Ockwell Smith, who coined the term, said, "The key here really is thinking, would I like it if someone did this to me? If the answer is no, then why would you do it to your child?" Because they're a child.
Paul Maher says this is what always happens when uber liberal bullshit goes too far, but you might as well just say what it is, Bill, because I think you know what it is. It's uber feminist bullshit. Cecilia Harden joins us live and gives us 5. She says parents are not great at parenting today. No discipline because they just want to be a friend. Yes, and good morning to you, Cecilia. Oh, God. Austin,
Newell, if you're in the
for the
market-
love of God, stop clicking that. Here we go.
Would I like it if someone stripped me naked and plopped me down in a tub of water? No, but with a kid, that's just bath time. I keep hearing how parenting is so hard these days. Yeah, because you're making it hard. Gentle parenting. It's like a Taco Bell breakfast. The reason it feels wrong is because it is. And it's
Talk about breakfast, actually.
ruining
Kind of good.
lives on both sides of the equation. Parents, it's ruining your lives because you've made yourselves a butler to a 5-year-old. And the kids, because the results are in, and all this letting the kids run the show, path of least resistance child rearing, is harming them. The average high school kid today has the same level of anxiety as the average psychiatric patient in the early 1950s.
Wow. The average high school kid today has the same level of anxiety as the average psychiatric patient in the early 50s. For people that they used to give, the ice pick to the brain where they would knock off the frontal lobe. What do they call that? Oh, lobotomies?
A recent survey of employers found that about 1 in 5 recent college graduates brought their parents with them to a job interview. Our kids are crippled with anxiety because they haven't been properly prepared for a world that doesn't revolve around them. Exactly. Almost 10% of college students claim to have PTSD from college, the cradle of safetyism, the home of safe spaces and trigger warnings and policing offensive words. You're not supposed to get PTSD in college. You're supposed to get an STD.
Why are you clapping? Why are you clapping for
The
that?
National Institutes of Health says that roughly half of teenagers now have a mental health disorder at some point in their lives, which tells me one thing. The National Institutes of Health is also part of the problem.
Well, we all knew that from COVID, Bill, but Bill doesn't know, does he? But you know, you and I know, we know.
The mental health disorder is on the part of the adults, not the children. The adults who forgot that to a child, discipline is love. And that kids need structure and authority. Of course they think they have traumatic stress disorder when they get to college if before they left the house, they never heard the word no.
Right. We heard no plenty, and we got to the point where we didn't really ask for things because either we knew what the answer was, or we just realized that we shouldn't be asking for frivolous things. I'll never forget, a few years before my mother passed away, she took us to a yard sale in Peculiar, Missouri, where we're from. And I will never forget that there were 2 swords that were there. There was this very ornate sword, and then there was this kind of plain-looking sword. And I remember saying to my mother, I just begged, because I was really into knights in shining armor, and I loved King Arthur books when I was a kid. And I said to my mother, can I please have the sword? Can I please? It was like $50, which in 1990 was, I don't know, $200 or something at this point, right? It was a lot of money. And I asked my mother, I was like, can I please have one of these? And she said no. And I left it at that. It was no big deal. But I'll never forget, I have this burned into my memory. We went home and I got into the shower, and I remember my mom knocking on the door and saying, Austin, you know what? I'm going to take you back up there and I'm going to buy you that sword. And I was just like, what? Why, Austin? She goes, because you never ask for anything. I learned my lesson as a young kid, not to ask for things. And I remember too, one time asking my mom for a drink of water or something. I was like, "Mom, would you please bring me a drink of water?" And I remember hearing her muttering to my father. She's like, "Wow, that's so unlike he's not the type of person to ask for things. Austin never asks for things. He doesn't ask for anything." These days, I tend to ask for things. I've gotten, when you're an adult, if you don't ask, you don't get. But I remember that my mother was not overly indulgent. They disciplined me at a young age. I learned my lessons, and that I didn't ask for things. So that the very few times when I did ask for things, I actually got them. And I've kept that sword to this day, and it still hangs on my wall at home. And it's a keepsake that reminds me of my mother, honestly. And it was a beautiful memory. Okay, so here's the deal. The Wake Up America show has a bonus content mini documentary that we produce every day. And it's way more fun to watch the mini documentary than it is to watch commercials. So if you'd like to watch the mini documentary instead of commercials, either get those Rumble rants in or those YouTube super chats, or what I recommend is to head to ap4libertyshop.com. There's still enough time to get things like some t-shirts. I think that the window on sneakers has passed, but if you'd like to get some of your 4th of July outfits ready for the party that's coming up, don't delay past today. ap4libertyshop.com. And if we sell enough merchandise this morning to equal $60 in purchases, then that will also unlock today's mini documentary. All right, so how we've been talking about psyops? Well, Mark McCluskey here thinks that we've got one happening in Missouri. You know that angry Latina who's been going viral lately on X.com because she's talking about don't be weak and gay, and she's doing these angry jogs. She triggers the hell out of Camellia, I'll tell you that, because we always see Camellia talking about her. And then I saw that she got Camellia was blocked by this young lady. She rose to superstardom out of nowhere, at least on social media. But Mark McCluskey smells a rat, a very stinky rat. In this, he thinks it's a psyop. We're gonna break it down when we get back with Mark McCluskey. Enjoy the commercials, kids, until you unlock the bonus documentary. You shall suffer the pain of the commercials. We'll be right back on the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com. Bye, guys.
The Cantina crew. This is Elon Musk, the CEO of Twitter. And I just want to say thank you for watching the Wake Up America show. I've decided that Austin Peterson will be the new CEO of Twitter.com, effective immediately. First thing to do, though, is I've got to go and blast off into space.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
The conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government. Get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
What would happen if I had to pick up the phone, call 911 for one of my family members or one of my neighbors? What would I do if no one was on the other end to respond? What if there was no 911? So you can be a part of the solution.
Anybody can be a firefighter. Male, female, younger, older.
We have school teachers. We have leaders in business.
It's me, you, anyone that wants to be.
There is no typical firefighter.
Do you hate the deep state? Do you reject the Antichrist in all his ways? Do you believe that aliens controlled LBJ to assassinate John F. Kennedy? Did you know that the shot can put chemicals in you that will make you more sensitive to 5G? Do you love America? Do you want more freedom? Do you like smoking hot red-headed libertarians? Then the AP for Liberty shop is for you! Check out all the awesome new merch and have a happy new year! Fight the deep state, reject the Antichrist. Visit AP for Liberty shop and get your patriotic merchandise now, or the deep state wins.
It's 6 a.m. and I'm doing the 15-mile run from St. Louis City to Creveport, Missouri, without the hundreds of patrons that wanted to join me because I pissed off a bunch of weak and gay people that always find a way to mess things up. So fuck you and watch me become Missouri's 41st Secretary of State.
Okay, so good morning. That foul-mouthed Latina running for Secretary of State's name is Maria Valentina Gomez, or is it? Come to find out, that might not actually be her real name. Well, I wonder why. Well, we've been talking about psyops and e-girls here on the Wake Up America show in the last week. It sounds like we've got another psyop on our hands. Joining us live is the real deal, the man whom, in the flesh, stood up to Black Lives Matter activists with an AR-15 in his hand. He's a hero in the state of Missouri. He's a hero on the Wake Up America show, just like Christopher Columbus. In this house, we stand Mark McCluskey, host of his own show, Mark McCluskey on Fire, joining us live this morning. Good morning, Mark. Nice to see you, brother.
Nice to see you, although I'm sorry I'm not dressed appropriately today.
You're in the right place, Mark. I call this the silly shirt but serious coverage show.
There you go.
We're thankful to have you here, Mark. This Maria Valentina character, she's been blowing up on social media, and she's got all of the right people reposting her over on X.com. Matt Gaetz, congressman from Florida, has endorsed her. But for other people who actually live in the state of Missouri, there have been some red flags and alarm bells going off. And apparently I'm not the only one who is seeing these alarms going off. Mark, talk to us a little bit about what you've discovered about Miss Gomez.
Well, and her last name's actually Noriega, right? I don't know why she doesn't want to use her real last name, except that maybe Noriega's got some bad press in the United States. Who knows these things, drug cartels and whatnot. But I don't believe she's actually endorsed by Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz had a blurb that said, no one is more full of energy. Well, what she does is she'll go up to people at conferences, get a selfie taken with them, and then claim endorsement, just like she did with General Mike Flynn. So she had a picture with Mike Flynn, and then she says, Mike's got my back, I've got his. Well, Doug Billings, who happens to be a friend of General Flynn's, calls up General Flynn and says, are you really endorsing this whack job? And he says, well, I've met her. I didn't endorse her. I don't even know how to get in touch with her. So then Doug, this is just an example of how her brain works. Doug Billings then writes her and says, maybe you want to come on the program and explain yourself. She says, well, they warned me against people like you. My name is on the top. Nobody else was relevant. You're just irrelevant garbage. Well, she said the same thing about me. Doug Billings is the sixth or seventh biggest conservative blogger in the country, a friend of President Trump, friend of a lot of people. And to call him irrelevant garbage is really weird. But I mean, everything. I mean, she obviously has no idea what the job of Secretary of State is, which is really just a ministerial job to, enforce the laws that have been passed by the House and Senate and signed by the governor. Number one thing on her platform, she wants to activate the National Guard to secure elections. That's something the Secretary of State can do, right? Modernize infrastructure. Some of these things are really great. Hang on 1 second here. She wants to help Missouri's farmers and ranchers. She wants to secure the Second Amendment. She wants to reject mandates, support law enforcement, protect children against transgender agenda, exterminating human trafficking. She apparently believes that the Secretary of State's job gives her omnipotent power. But the best thing about her, and I said this on my program, when you're 14, 15, 16 years old, you think you're the smartest guy that ever lived. Every time a thought comes into your head, you think, nobody's ever thought that before. I'm really a genius, right? I'm the greatest thing that ever lived. And I know exactly what's going on. Anybody that doesn't agree with me is just wrong, right? Well, usually by the time you get to be 19, 20, 21, you get out of college, you start reading, for example, Plato, and you realize that everything that you thought was your original thought has been being discussed for 2,500 years, right? And you're really not the smartest person that ever lived, and you're really not omnipotent. Some people never outgrow that. And here you got Valentina Gomez Noriega saying, for example, last week, I am the best. I am the most Second Amendment pro-candidate in the history of America. 25-year-old girl, never done anything, right? I run multi-billion-dollar corporations. Actually said that. I have run multi-billion-dollar corporations, okay? She worked at Nestle, Ralston Purina, from the time that she got out of college until when they fired her 2 weeks ago. Oh, I'm sorry, she fired them. Because they're pedophiles. The entire Nestle Corporation pedophiles.
Oh, wow. Wait, Mark, hold on. We got to back up there for just a second. So I want to make sure I understand correctly what we're saying here. So she's Secretary of State candidate from, she's here in Missouri. She kind of came out of nowhere. Now she's kind of like a social media darling. She's getting millions of views for her like angry rants, foul mouth tirades. And you say she used to work at Ralston Purina, but you say she got fired. She says she left because they were pedophiles. What is that story?
Well, she said she fired Nestle because they're pedophiles. And
Nestle.
Yeah. Well, of course, I'm not quite sure that Nestle actually worked for her. How she could fire them. But her arrogance knows no bounds. She claims that the Kansas City Chiefs joined her campaign to fight pedophilia and transgenderism. She also claimed that they were the only NFL team to not publish anything on Gay Pride Month. Well, actually, I think about half the teams avoided sticking their foot in that issue. But on the other hand, the Chiefs, if you go on their merchandise page, you got all kinds of transgender and gay pride type paraphernalia. The best part is, though, George Santos calls me up the other day. George and I know each other.
George Santos, he's the congressman from New York, the gay guy who got run out on a rail because they didn't like that he was stirring up trouble in Congress.
Yeah. Good conservative guy, interesting kind of background. But anyway, he says, who's this Valentina Gomez woman? And I gave him some background. He says, I'm talking to her. She wanted me to come in, wanted George to come in for a victory party. And he says, well, what's all this weak and gay stuff? Her tagline that gets her all the media attention is, whatever it is, you're weak and gay, right? If you're the Pope, you're weak and gay. If you're God, you're weak and gay. And George says, well, you know, I'm gay, don't you? Dead silence. She had no response whatsoever. She went up to Turning Point last weekend to promote herself. And she said about a couple of months ago, last year I went to Turning Point. This week I'm going to be speaking there. Well, speaking into her own microphone, okay. But one of the guys that she posted selfies with is a gay guy, right? And she never does her homework, you know, has absolutely no idea what the hell's going on, you know. And but here's the best part of all this, because that's just personality, right? But the best part is that she is just totally connected with the left. Here's her brother, Jonathan.
She's connected with the left, Mark. This is what you're saying.
Yeah, here's her brother, Jonathan Gomez Noriega. He works for something called the Institute of Global Politics. You know who the executive director of the Institute of Global Politics is? Hillary Rodham Clinton. That's what he works for. It's a globalist entity at Columbia University to promote globalist ideas. Her other brother, who runs her campaign, Michael Gomez, on his LinkedIn page, the thing that he's proudest of is his diversity, inclusion, and belonging for all certification. But my favorite thing is on her LinkedIn page under interests, there are two names. There's O'Leary from the Shark Tank, and the other one is Melinda Gates, the wife of the guy that wants to kill 90% of us and take over the world. These are her heroes, you know. And then, by the way, she's wiped her social history. If you go back before when she announced for Secretary of State, she does not exist on the web. And you got to wonder about that. If you poll her campaign finance report from April 15th, you see that in her entire campaign, she's raised about $5,000, only $540 for the state of Missouri. And yet she's flying all over the place. She's not all of it. No matter what it is, I call it Clintonisms, right? When you don't technically lie, but you misdirect. She has a picture of herself outside the presidential palace in El Salvador, saying, I just left the presidential palace, like she was invited there or something. But somehow she flies all over the place with no campaign contributions. She had a job after college for about 2 years, for which she's now been fired or quit. And no campaign donations and almost no support from the state of Missouri. And so you got to wonder where her funding comes from. I invited her on my show. She refused. I said, and I'll read what I said to her. Don't you have the guts to come on my program and sell yourself? Who knows? You might change my mind. I appeared on everybody's program, including Chris Cuomo and left-wing shows around the world. So I use her catchphrase, don't be weak and gay, right? She writes back.
Wait a minute now. Hold on. That's a great way for me to reset for those who might just be tuning in. Good morning. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show. I'm speaking to Mark McCluskey, host of his own show, McCluskey on Fire. We're both Missourians, and we're both following the primary elections that are coming up. Maybe you've been following yours in your state, but in my state, we have what you might consider to be an e-girl who kind of came out of nowhere, who is sort of has a shadowy history, right? She used to live in New Jersey, apparently, but has somehow appeared in Missouri and worked for the Nestle Corporation, has her brothers running this campaign that has no money, but suddenly she's become this sort of darling of the conservative media sphere. And can we just speak about that for a moment, Mark? Because we're starting to see this happening where it's kind of like this rise of these conservative e-girls, is what we call them, right? Electronic girls. And it's like they come out of nowhere, and all of a sudden they're the darling of the conservative right. You'll see them taking pictures with all of the famous celebrities, and we did see her, photographed with General Flynn. She made it appear like she got endorsed by him, but she really wasn't. She's done this with a few other conservative figures. She's everywhere but in Missouri, and in circles, popular online circles, we call things like this a psyop. Mark, right? A psychological operation, right? Or some people call it like a meme candidate rather than a real candidate. You discovered a lot of shady dealings, a lot of shady history in her past. You've worked to expose it now. And now what we're dealing with here in Missouri is a Secretary of State race where you have this one candidate who's getting all of this attention. And listen, you've seen pictures of her. Like, there are plenty of people who have huge followings online that are like, this is the next Secretary of State. So you think that she is running a pretty damn successful psyop here as far as psyops go?
I really think what she's campaigning for is not Secretary of State. I think what she's campaigning for is a social media influencer, and that's she gets 1 to 3% of the vote in Missouri, but she gets a million hits every time she passes wind, and so that's really what she's after, and she's learned that the more outrageous you get, the more hits you get, obviously. And the funny thing is, she wants to every post that she makes starts with something like "Christ is King," and then uses the F word immediately, and tells everybody that she doesn't like to go F themselves. And her campaign is just based on transparency and accountability, right? So how do you, if you want to be transparent, how can you do that if you block everybody on X that doesn't agree with you? Like she's blocked me, she's blocked Doug Billings, she's blocked anybody that would ask her to actually verify any of these wild, crazy claims that she makes. Because half the people, I'm not a pretty girl. Maybe some people think she is, but I got to tell you, half or more of the people that respond to her post say, "I want to marry you" or "I want to have sex with you." Right? It's not really the kind of political discourse that one would wish to have with a serious candidate.
Mark McCluskey and I, nobody's going to be sharing our videos and telling us how much they want to have sex with us. Yeah, that's what. Maybe we're just jealous, but no, I'm teasing.
So I call her the Cory Bush, the Republican Cory Bush. Just as dumb as a sack of hammers, but wanting to be important.
Yeah, I'll admit that I've kind of kept an eye on her from a distance. I've talked about her maybe a couple of times, but I just kind of considered to be sort of a flash in the pan. A lot of people who sort of explode onto the political scene don't really have staying power. I've been in politics now 20 years, which is less even than yourself. I've seen pictures of you, shaking hands with Ronald Reagan, and I know you've been around a long time, and you're a big Donald Trump supporter. You and Maria, I kind of come from the Liberty wing of the Republican Party, but you and Valentina Gomez, you're sort of in the same ponds, right? You're more of the Trump MAGA Republicans. And so for you to call her out is a big deal. If somebody like myself called out Valentina Gomez, they'd say, "Oh, he's just a bitter libertarian, blah, blah, blah." Nobody, who cares about what Austin has to say? But if you're a Trump MAGA Republican like yourself, then it really opened my eyes when I saw that you were saying this. So have you talked to other people other than perhaps General Flynn or Doug Billings, maybe people in Missouri that run in your circles? I mean, what are you hearing from other kind of like Trump MAGA Republicans here in Missouri?
Well, folks my age, I'll be honest, I'm 67 years old. I've never heard of her because most people my age aren't on X a great deal. I've talked to the other people running for Secretary of State, and I ran into Mary Elizabeth Coleman at dinner a couple of nights ago, and she's worried about it. I talked to Denny Hoskins a couple of weeks ago about it, and I said, "Well, Denny, yeah, she's a nobody, but you got to worry about it these days." And she called. I'll give you an example. I vote in Franklin County because that's where my farm is, my official residence. She comes to the Franklin County Lincoln Reagan Day dinner, too cheap to pay the $65 for dinner, so she stands in the back of the room until it's time for her to go up and give her presentation. And she goes up, and the first thing she says, all you politicians in this room are corrupt politicians. You're all corrupt politicians. You're all going to go to jail when I get elected Secretary of State." Well, I'm in that room. I don't think of myself as a corrupt politician. I don't think I need to go to jail for anything. But my producer for my radio program brought his wife there. First political thing she'd ever gone to. And she says, is this normal to have people stand up there and swear at you and threaten to put you in jail? But it is weird. She calls everybody that doesn't agree with her corrupt. She says that everybody's corrupt except her. And here's the thing. I go to all these Republican functions, and I speak all over the country, and usually I say something like this, the left doesn't have to defeat us. They just have to wait 5 years and we'll all be dead. We're all old people, right? And every time I see a young person who at least espouses that they're on the correct end of the spectrum that I think I am, I encourage it because we need fresh blood. We don't have a very deep bench because everybody's getting old. And so I normally would be wholeheartedly supporting anybody who espouses America first, real constitutional conservative agenda, small government, individual freedom, that sort of thing. But you can't have somebody who's such an embarrassment, who is so obviously unbalanced. We could get if she wins the primary, we could actually lose the Secretary of State's race I mean, it is an embarrassment to the party, and I don't believe she has a genuine conservative bone in her body. I think she's just out there for Valentino Gomez Noriega, and I mean, amongst other things, she has no idea what the job is. But somebody asked her on a program, "Can you be president of the United States?" She says, "Well, no, because I wasn't born in the United States, but I can be vice president." So I wrote her and I said, "Have you read the 12th Amendment? Do you see where it says you have to be qualified to be president, to be vice president?" No response, because you can't challenge her on facts, because facts interfere with ego, right? And as I will read something I wrote to her before she canceled me. When I was talking about how she's afraid to go on any programs that challenge her, like Cuomo and Don Lemon, I said, "I must have missed your appearances on Cuomo and Lemon." Of course, she never was. I bet they didn't have your signs in front of her. If you'll only be interviewed by folks who have pledged their loyalty and support, how genuine can you get? Get serious. Wild claims and arrogance are no substitute for substance. Be transparent, and accountable. By the way, let your voters hear more than sound bites. Where can I find a list of your endorsements? Because she says she's got a bigger platform and better endorsements than anybody else. She said, "I'm the best educated candidate in Missouri." She also says that she's independently wealthy. She's a real estate financier. Well, she has a house down in South St. Louis that's worth about $300,000 with her brother and some other family members. If this makes you a financier in real estate, everybody that's buying a house is a real estate financier.
Hey,
so
that makes me. I'm a real estate mogul.
And by the way, that's what I call Clinton, right? Bill Clinton developed this technique of saying things which are absolutely misdirected, saying things that were implying complete falsehoods without technically being a lie. Some of her stuff, I think, is technically being a lie, but most of it's just her attempting to bootstrap herself into some kind of notoriety through false impression. And nobody challenged. She was on Tommy Lahren show a couple of weeks ago. Actually went down to Nashville to go on Tommy Lahren. Tommy Lahren asked her about what she means by weak and gay. Well, they're weak and gay. Well, when you say gay, what do you mean? Well, they're weak and gay. She was on Mark Cox's program in St. Louis, and Mark Cox is asking about the IP bill in front of the Senate, and she had no idea what he was talking about. And so she says, instead of answering the question about whether or not that's going to get through the legislature, she says, "We shouldn't waste our time on things like that. We've got to talk about real issues." She had no idea what she was talking about. Not a clue. See, and so that's why, you got to be concerned. I have no idea how many Generation Zs out there actually register and vote. I have no idea how many people in Missouri actually see her kind of unbalanced rants on X. But, you got to be a little concerned. Even the people that have raised significant money for Secretary of State races don't have the money to advertise on television statewide. How do you compete with a lunatic that posts 400 times a day?
I don't know, Mark, but if you figure it out, just let me know. Hey, Mark, people who are tuning into the show this morning would like to find out where they can hear more from you. Can you give us a little plug? Tell us about your show.
Sure, and I'll plug you first. When you're talking about your career in politics, my recollection is that in 2016, you ran for the United States president as a libertarian and got about 22% of the libertarian vote. So that's no small shakes in my book. So,
thank you, Mark. But where can we hear more from you, sir?
You catch me on News Talk STL in St. Louis at 101.9, also on Rumble, also on iHeartRadio, also on my X feed. My X is at McCloskey USA. That's MCCLOSKEY USA. You can catch me on Rumble on Mark McCloskey on Fire. We broadcast Sunday afternoons, but you can catch me forever after that. I had an interesting show this week where I interviewed Lee Harvey Oswald's girlfriend. Unfortunately, I couldn't get her to focus. She may have a little bit of Joe Biden in her these days.
Well, Mark, I definitely want to watch that anyway, just for the sheer entertainment value. Check out Mark McCloskey's show, McCloskey on Fire, and follow him over at x.com. If you don't fall for psyops, then Mark McCloskey's show is the place to be. All right. Thank you, Mark, for getting up early, and thanks for being so generous with your time.
Thanks for having me on. You take care.
Thank you very much. What do you all think of Mark McCloskey? Good interviews, huh? I'll reach out to Valentina Gomez and see if she wants to come on our show. I have a feeling she's probably going to block me because it looks like she can't take any hint of criticism or questioning. But we'll try. We'll see. I'll talk to anybody. So I'll invite Valentina Gomez on the show. Maybe she'll come on this week. Who knows? Maybe we'll hit it off, and maybe she'll be able to answer the questions that Mark McCluskey wanted to ask her. And we'll see if we can set it up. So I'll reach out to Valentina Gomez and give her an opportunity to rebut, because everybody deserves that chance. And yeah, we'll be trying to bring on more candidates. Obviously, the Wake Up America show is a Missouri-based show, but it's not just about Missouri politics. We're all about waking up America, and sometimes we even talk about waking up South America when we're covering Javier Milei. So it's all about the Americas here. But I'm an American, a United States American, a Yankee American, as they call us south of the border. A Yankee, a damn Yankee. And we'll reach out to Valentina Gomez and see if she'll come on the show. We're here from in Jefferson City, Missouri, the capital of Missouri, and the heartland of the United States. So when I have candidates that I think are interesting from Missouri, I do try and bring them on the show. What do you think about that? Actually, I'd be curious. If you're not from the state of Missouri, do you like hearing about like Missouri political intrigue, like what you just heard? I thought that was an interesting story, just because more broadly, we've been covering the whole psyop, the e-girl psyops that have been going on around the country. Like, who's actually legit and who's just using us to try and get that sweet, sweet ad money and revenue from social media? Do you like having candidates from Missouri politics on the show? I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. You can send us a text at 573-319-1586. Again, that text line is open, and people are texting me all the time, night or day. I got a bunch of happy Father's Day tweet or texts from people over the weekend, which was nice. And that text line again is 573-319-1586. Again, 573-319-1586.
Never heard you're wrong. Never heard wait. A lot of life is waiting. Yeah, waiting for your boss to recognize your worth, waiting for love to bloom, waiting for your career to take off, waiting for your partner to be finished in the bathroom. Waiting for your porn to download, for your vape to charge, for the drugs to kick in. For your eyebrows to grow back after you do something stupid on drugs. It's vital you learn as a kid how much of life is going to be waiting. And boundaries. Jesus, yes, boundaries. Sex dolls set more boundaries than today's parents. This is why the traditional dad, the trad dad, needs to make a comeback. Not all the way back to the 1950s psychopath who never said he loved you and hit you with a belt, no. But just back to the dad who believes that because I said so is a perfectly legitimate answer to any question a child may have. Just back to the dad who would never say anything as stupid as, my kid is my hero. Or where do you want to eat dinner? Or one more story and then we really have to start thinking about going to bed, okay? Yeah. Trad dads don't negotiate. They say, you will apologize to your mother. Don't make me turn this car around. Some things just happen because life is unfair. Clean your room, be quiet, the adults are talking, and it's not all about you.
There you go. All right. So Will we see a return of the trad dads? John Miltimore, he's a dad, just got back from vacation with his family. He enjoyed a nice Father's Day. Let's talk about the indispensable male. Thank you to Glocos for that $10 donation. We are at like $25 towards the $60 goal, which means, well, more commercials. Don't be mad. Just pony up. You'll be able to watch the mini documentary when we get back on the Wake Up America show.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here, and we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
Hey there, it's your favorite Vice President Joe Biden. I wanted to talk to you today about the Wake Up America show, the best source for all your political news and commentary. But before I get started, let me just make sure I have all my notes in order. Okay, where was I? All right, the Wake Up America show. It's a great way to stay informed and make your voice heard. Boy, what was I saying again? Oh, right. The Wake Up America show. It's important that we all stay engaged and knowledgeable about what's going on in our country and, the thing. But hold on, where was I going with all this? Oh, yeah. The Wake Up America show. It's a fantastic resource. And if you really want to make a difference, man, you can sign up to be a monthly donor at wakeupAmericaShow.com/support. Now, where was I? Oh, that's right, the Wake Up America show. So if you want to stay woke and support a great cause, head on over to wakeupAmericaShow.com/support and sign up to be a monthly donor today. And if you're feeling generous, you can even give a donation in my name. Thanks for listening, and keep on keeping on, America. Come on, man.
Welcome back to the Wake Up America show. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. We're glad and thankful to have you here. Click that like button. We'd be grateful to have you join us regularly, Monday through Friday from 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. Every Monday through Friday for 2 hours in the mornings. We start fresh and early with a nice, bright, beautiful t-shirt. The theme of the Wake Up America show is 1980s synthwave, but we're taking it back to the 1950s today, because we're talking about the return of the trad dads. We've been reacting a little bit to Bill Maher, who in his show over the weekend says that it's time for us to get rid of that gentle parenting nonsense and start to return to traditional parenting. What do you think about that? Let's hear from our next guest. He's a regular on the show. Last week he was out because, you know what? He was being a good dad. It's Mondays with Miltimore. John Miltimore, that is, from fee.org, joining us live this morning, looking fresh and fit and healthy and a little tan in the cheeks. Good morning, John.
Hey, morning, AP. This is about as tan as I get these days. But yeah, 7 days in the sun, you can see how I look.
John, we're glad to have you here, brother. If you can possibly turn up the volume on your mic, that would be great. But if not, then I think I can always fix it later in the audio version of the podcast. But if there's any way, just a tiny smidgen of more volume is possible, then that would be great. But otherwise, I can hear you fine, and the audio people later, of course, will have it massaged, so no problem.
All
John,
right, I think I got it now.
Okay, John, we've been reacting to this Bill Maher piece, but also there was this article that was written over the weekend in this was it the Spectator or Free Press by Doug Murray about the indispensable male, where he was talking a little bit about Camille Paglia of all people and why she, as a feminist, thought it was important for us to have men. Tell us a little bit about your experience as a father, what you thought of what Bill Maher was saying about how the nonsense of the concept of gentle parenting, and talk us a little bit through about your thoughts on that one as a libertarian, someone who believes in freedom, like nonviolence and all of that. Tell us about your experience. Did you have any problems with your philosophy running into the cold, hard truth of reality as a parent?
Sure, you bet. Like I'm one of those parents at libertarian parties. You know, we go out for events and cocktail parties. They're always shocked that I'm not anti-spanking, and to me, you know, spanking is something that I had one of my children. I never spanked once. One I had to spank a handful of times. One I had to spank a lot, and you know, I don't like it. It's one of those things. I think there's better ways to parent, but I'm an old school person that I believe at some point you need to get your child's attention. You need to get their respect in some way. And if everything else is failing, you have to do it that way. So that was, you know, certain, you know, people say, well, you're using violence. And I suppose I am. You know, I never thought about it that hard, but I was spanked occasionally as a child, not often. But these are things, you know, parents are going to have to make decisions. I'll say this, if parents are making these decisions together, if you have a partner where you see the world through the same lens, I think you are able to navigate those things pretty well. I know people who don't see, you know, mom and dad don't see things the same way, and that can be tricky. You know, you have to communicate a lot there. But as far as Mars, you know, larger point, you know, I think there's, you know, he's onto something. I'd rather have a parent who's maybe, you know, parenting a little too much than one who's not parenting at all. You know, if you have laissez-faire in economics is great, right? When we use that term, you know, the government taking a very hands-off approach. In parenting, you know, you don't want to helicopter parent either. Like there's all these areas, these gray areas. We work hard to be free range parents, where we let our kids, you know, go throughout the neighborhood. Even when they were early, I had family members who were kind of shocked. They said, where's your littlest one? I'm like, oh, he's off playing. I said, well, isn't he a little bit too small for that? And I said, no, like we trust the neighborhood, we trust the other parents, and you know, but all of these things as parents, it's difficult to navigate. And as far as, you know, fatherhood, like I do think dads matter. I'll say this, I think they matter even more for daughters. You know, I think they matter in both spaces. But in my experience, when dad and their little girl don't have a good, healthy relationship, I think you see that often in young women. And having just a trusting, loving relationship between father and daughter, I think is crucial.
Yeah, I mean, we're libertarians, right? But we're more, I don't know, conservative in our behavior and our actions. Like we believe in this concept of tolerance according to, you know, our principles, right? We want to live in a society where, you know, you don't have to worry about being persecuted. If you're in a same-sex relationship, you're free to pursue that. You know, we just choose to live more traditional lifestyles. But when it comes to things like sex work, for example, we might say, you know, while it should be legal, we definitely don't want our daughters engaged in that, right? And that's, you know, we don't want to glorify that kind of a lifestyle because ultimately we can say that that's probably destructive to society.
Yeah, it's interesting, you know, like in the libertarian space, you have your right-leaning libertarians and your left-leaning libertarians. I was drawn to Fee, you know, largely because Fee really does believe character matters. You know, if you look all the way back to Leonard Reed, you know, Larry Reed, Fee has emphasized character. Now, becomes tricky because what is character? Like what are virtues? And navigating that today is not easy because you have, the left and the right, they're not just different politically, they have totally different moral structures. And like you, Austin, I really celebrate people living their own lifestyle. I'm not trying to determine how other people live their lives. And I ask that people try not to determine, how I live my life. But I do think the way, I'm not somebody, I can't celebrate sex work. I can say, of course, if this is how you choose to make a living, that's your choice. And I'm not going to, I don't want to punish you for that. But I don't think that's a healthy way for an individual to make their life. And I would encourage somebody I cared about not to do that. I would encourage my daughter not to go into that, or my sons, or anyone. I would say, is this really what we're here for as human beings? Is this what we're here? Does this glorify yourself? Does this glorify God in some way? I don't think that's the case. And so for me, that's sort of, I don't even want to shame people though either so much. Like it's just not my, I'm somebody who looks at my own life. I've made my mistakes, right? I'm no saint. And so to me, using the stick of shame to get people to correct, but all that said, I do think, people knowing what's right from wrong is important. And I think today there's a lot of confusion on that. And we see that a lot in these gender debates, right? With fathers, what toxic masculinity. I think masculinity is good, but I know there's people on the right. This conversation has came up recently. A lot of the stuff being championed on the right is masculinity. I'm like, that's some of the things we're championing are toxic, and being, caring for and being compassionate towards others, I don't think is anti-masculine, but I think there is a current in masculinity today. It's sort of this alpha male type appeal. And when you got to strut around as an alpha male, I mean, to me, that's actually not strength.
Yeah, I agree. I see this a lot actually, where there'll be videos of fathers who take their daughters to like Taylor Swift concerts, and they're singing along with their daughters, and they're all having a good time. And it's quite clear that the father loves his daughters and is being a good parent. And you'll see conservatives sort of ripping on him for being anti-masculine in such a way. And it's kind of like, I wonder sometimes if those men actually have kids, right? Or if they understand what masculinity is, or it's like, what kind of father are they really, And I think about this a lot because, I'm not I haven't been through parenting yet, obviously, but being pro-life, I am technically a dad at this moment until my little baby girl arrives. And I do think about what my future will be like and how my masculinity will impact my daughter's future. How will she see herself, and how will she have a relationship with a man as she's impacted by her relationship with me? Because I think that, at least from what I understand and from other people's relationships, and maybe you can confirm or deny this, that a daughter will be naturally attracted towards a man based on how her father had treated her. And if he was indifferent to her, then she might have a more destructive relationship because of how she was treated by her father. But if she was loved and taught respect, then she'll probably seek out men that will treat her, with more respect and more with love and kindness. I don't know how old your children are, but I'd be curious your thoughts on this phenomenon of father-daughter relationships and how they impact how a woman looks for a mate.
Painting with a broad brush, I think you're absolutely right. I think daughters are going to learn, you know, through their relationship with their father, what love is, what respect is, what these qualities are. And if they have a father that doesn't give them any attention or has neglected them, or a father that wasn't present, I do think that can be just you see that reflected later in life. And again, that's painted with a broad brush. There's young women who maybe grew up without a father and became very strong women. And, I'm not saying that's not possible, but I think that it's supported by good science. I've always taken that relationship, very seriously, because maybe even like on a subconscious level, I think I understood that those two things, love and respect, If you show those things to your daughter and she respects you, it's not about just love, because I think children are going to naturally love their parents, but you also have to have them respect you. And if they lose respect for you, like I think that can just make that relationship worse. But you're going to be getting to experience this for yourself, soon, Austin, and it's wonderful. Everybody is wishing me happy Father's Day yesterday, and I was not just trying to be humble. I'm like, I really don't need laurels for being a father. It's my favorite job in the world. I love my day job, but being a parent's the best job in the world. Is it challenging? Sure. Are there times you want to break and don't get one? Sure. But if you love your role and embrace your role, I think that's half the battle of being a parent. But there isn't, a roadmap for it either. And there's a lot of places that you're going to have to, just learn as you go and do the best job you can. At the end of the day, you'll probably look and say, like, I could have done this better. I could have done that better. And that's just life. But if your heart's in the right place and you dedicate yourself to your wife and your children, you're going to be fine.
Floby Tenderson over on the chat says that this hurts me more than it hurts you. Never made sense as a kid, but it's beyond true as a parent. Guokos says, AP, you give your kids the respect that you deserve from them. That's why you don't beat them. Sure, there's 1 in a million kids, though, that are just out of control. And Courtney Conover says that this sort of depends on the personality of the girl. Well-behaved ones, sure. Those with rebellious streaks will initially seek out the opposite of their father to their detriment. Interesting. We're speaking to John Miltimore here on the Wake Up America show. We call it Mondays with Miltimore. He works for the Foundation for Economic Education, and he is talking to us a little bit today about what fatherhood means and father-daughter relationships. But I'd like to ask you about this article that Douglas Murray wrote. Now, I know you probably couldn't read the full thing because just like me, we had to have that paywall. But it was an article that was a sort of a reiteration of what Camille Paglia had argued in it looks like the 90s about the question of whether men are dispensable or not, the indispensable male. Here's what Douglas Murray had to say in his piece. One of the strangest things that has happened in my lifetime is the emergence of the man as a pathetic figure or a figure of fun. For the last 15 years ago, you could see it in every walk of life, nowhere more so than in advertising. There are 2 things you can always predict with 100% certainty. If a family, any family, is featured in an advertisement, the first is that the family will be biracial. The second is that the man, especially if he's white, will be portrayed as an incompetent or a loser. Have you noticed this as well, John? Because Stephanie and I also have noticed it in the brief commercials that we see online. If there's a white male like us, he's an idiot. But if there is a family, they're usually biracial. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, this is I have a friend, he talks about this a lot. It's a pet peeve. And maybe I was aware of it before, but he's been talking about it for years, this phenomenon, the bumbling, white guy in the commercials. I think it's there, and it's over the top today. Now, I go back, I look at how it was explored kind of in like my favorite 80s comedies. Clark Griswold, right? Clark is kind of a bumbling male, but it was done by, John Hughes. He captured something with that as dads, we're just kind of trying to navigate this best we can, lead our families, and we're going to make some, I have my Clark Griswold moments, and you can go to John Candy in like The Great Outdoors or some of these, are they a little bit bumbling? Yeah, but it's funny and it works and it's true. Where we are today in the marketing space is different than that. It's way too heavy-handed, and it's way too predictable, and that makes it not fun. Not fun or funny. And so, yeah, I think it's way over the top. And, the fact that I think it does stem through this place we've entered with, intersectionality and critical race theory, where it's made us hyper aware of our, of our differences in race and culture and these things. And now you have marketing people, they want to be funny, but they really don't know how, and they can only make fun of one person because they're afraid to make, an oppressed class look silly, and that's what kind of explains it. So I think Murray's kind of right. At the same time, I want us to be able to laugh at the silly dads too, right? That's okay. It's sort of like the pendulum is just too far, and it's become like an eyesore when you're watching in the commercial. Every commercial's the same, and the punchline might be a little bit different. So yeah, I noticed that, and I find it strange.
Yeah, I've got a commercial pulled up from Progressive Car Insurance, which makes sense, Progressive, and it shows a white guy with apparently his wife or perhaps his mother. It's fully grown adult male sitting in the child seat in the shopping cart, and he's grabbing things like he's a child. It's a white man in an ad from the Twitter account. White men are stupid in commercials. After a while, I mean, we're supposed to not believe our lying eyes here, but I mean, it does seem a little more. I know that you're a conspiracy guy, like when it comes to the JFK stuff, but this seems like a conspiracy a little bit. What do you think about this one?
I don't think there's anything conspiratorial about it. I think it's just sort
Oh,
of where the
really?
ideas.
Okay, so
No.
JFK, but not this. I see.
No, I don't think I don't think you have a bunch of people in a room somewhere working together. I think it's more the way advertising and marketing work, right? How you have a bunch of people that work for a small number of offices in Manhattan who are kind of uniform in the way they're seeing the world, and they're churning out ads, for clients. So it's unimaginative for sure. But I don't think it's safe, right? It's safe. I go through this, like for art. I've worked as a web editor for 15 years, and you've seen when you got to select a picture for an article, and suddenly like where you can't find a picture of somebody who's a white guy. Like you might need somebody, and you're scouring to find one that fits, and you realize, wow, things have really changed in 5 years or 10 years. And at the same time, you're kind of hypersensitive to, you're selecting a photo, and you're selecting a photo. You want to be safe. You don't want to select the wrong photo that could lean into a stereotype and get you in deep trouble. Like this story. Here's an anecdote for you. I was working at a newspaper. This is close to 20 years ago, and I was friends with a photographer, and his wife was a photographer and did freelance work. And every year we went to a watermelon festival. Okay, like the reporter covered it. They took photos, and she used a photo, but it was a black family and eating watermelon, and they gotten so much. They took so much heat for that photo, and she was in tears about it. And she was like, "She's not a racist person, And she just, I was just going through my stuff, and I just took the best photo, and it was a big event, and so I think people are aware of those things, right? You're aware of crossing some line that exists out there and suddenly provoking outrage and getting yourself in deep trouble, getting your boss in trouble, and getting backlash. So I think there is a lot of sensitivity to that.
What I think is that because the left is trying to push us towards being a more androgynous society, because they cannot define what a woman is, but they'll clearly tell you what they believe a man is. I think that it is this idea that they want to try and push people like yourself and myself into a corner, because people like yourself and myself are the type of people that you don't want to have around when you're trying to overthrow a government and install socialism or Marxism, because people like you and I are going to be on the front lines to try and prevent something like that from happening. Let's be real here. We are the enemies of the left and of the cultural Marxist. We're the enemies of the people who try and trans the kids, for example. We're the enemy of people who want to try and force their sexuality on children at drag queen story hours, or try and load them up with hormone blockers before they reach the age of attainment. It is people who fit the stereotype of yourself and myself, who have the strength and the power not only to resist them and the moral courage to resist them, but we actually have real political power when we stand together. But they want to have us divided, John. They want to have guys like you and I not fighting together on the same team, not working together as a unit, because that might smack of something like perhaps, I don't know, identity politics. if you will. But if you and I play the same identity politics game that the left engages in order to wield political power, then the familiar pejoratives and epithets are flung around at us: racist, sexist, misogynist, whatever. I've just started to accept that whenever someone says something like, "Oh, Austin, you're a misogynist or you're a racist, you're a sexist," right? My running joke now is to just say, "Well, thank you for noticing," right? Because you're never going to change these people's mind. You're never going to have them think that you're not a racist. And honestly, you shouldn't have to say, "I'm not a racist." You shouldn't have to say it. You shouldn't have to explain it. Well, I mean, what we're fighting with here essentially is, an army of NPCs. This is the conspiracy, by the way, that I believe in, and I don't believe in the JFK one, but I believe in this one, right? Which is what Vivek Ramaswamy talked about recently, which is this concept of a great replacement theory. Because you do hear from the left that they want to put people like yourself and myself as a minority in our country so that they can prevent people like you and I from enforcing the kinds of policies that would protect children from the predators, from the druggies, and from the people who want to force their gender ideology on people before they reach the age of attainment. So that's my conspiracy theory, that international socialists, leftists, and gender wang weirdos want to access to our children. They want to harm us, and they want to destroy the type of culture that men like you and I want to create in this culture: a libertarian, free market culture where people like yourself and myself, who are white males, are free to do as we see fit and please with our own families, and to enforce laws that we see fit in our own communities. Does that sound too far-fetched or hyperbolic to you?
Well, I think there's two things we're talking about. I think the ideas are hostile to what you describe. I think neo-Marxism is real. And I think that there's a lot of people in university systems, in organizations, that see people like you and I as a threat. But I think it is a leap to say that the people that are spinning commercials are part of that. I don't think they are. I think that they're reacting to a lot of the ideas. I don't think these are deep people that are making these commercials. I think they're doing what's safe. I think they're doing, maybe what their boss is saying, like, we don't need blowback here. Humans are sheep, right? Like, I know that's not something that, we see courage, we see those things, but they're the exception. Mostly what we see from humans is conformity. And I think that's what we're seeing here. But the ideas of Marxism, yeah, like they are hostile to people like you and I, and not just people like you and I, but anybody that sort of are people that believe in individualism, that believe in free markets, that believe in freedom and want to protect it from people that are trying to take that away. And they might not look like you and I. They might be bigger threats in some ways than you and I, because we're just the white guys now, right? Like, we're just, like, we're kind of the cliche. I think that's why when you do see people of color, or people that were maybe formerly on their side that leave, there's a very strong backlash against them, because people say, well, you're supposed to be part of our team. You can't go. You need to toe the line. So yeah, I think long story short, that is where I see it. There's not a conspiracy of people to make commercials to make us look weak, as much as it's sort of it's part of the ideas that the people in the institutions, and the ideology of the people in the institutions have created.
Okay, there we go. Well, I think there's another one that I think we probably disagree on. I'm the conspiracy theorist today on this one, John, because I do think, knowing what I know about people in this industry, in the media, and I've worked in the media, and I've been into MSNBC's headquarters, they are an ideological magnet, in my opinion, who are driven by their ideas of what they want to enforce upon our society, and that they are working very diligently, hand in hand, in tandem, to try and enforce their gender wang and their racial politics, critical race theory, diversity, equity, inclusion, and ESG, which to me amounts to a conspiracy. John, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners? Maybe some nice words for the dads out there, or perhaps you'd like to plug your Substack before we let you go.
Yeah, check out our content on fee.org. I'm on Substack is the take, and yeah, happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. I know we're immersed in politics in this world, but the most important work you're doing is your work as a husband and a father.
There we go. John Miltimore. Mondays with Miltimore. Let's give him a round of applause. Thank you, John.
Hey, thanks, Andy. Have a good week.
Yep, you too. Have a good one. All right. Let's give John one more round of applause there. John Miltimore. Okay. So we've raised $40 towards the $60 goal, which means, we're not quite there yet. If we raise at least $20 more by the end of the show, you're going to get to see the bonus content. And don't you even want to know what the theme is of the bonus content? We always typically do a new theme each week, although for the last 2 weeks, there was so much good content on that we kept that theme running. But if you want to find out what this week's new theme is, you're going to have to unlock the bonus content. And it's a lot more fun to watch those than to watch commercials as we lead into our next guest, which is going to be Jonathan Williams from the American Legislative Exchange Council. We're going to hear from Jonathan Williams about Joe Biden's threats to undo Donald Trump's tax cuts. Yeah, I know.
No!
I know. Thank you, Michael Scott. We appreciate that. Keep an eye on it for you. But we're going to hear from Jonathan Williams from the American Legislative Exchange Council. If you want to hear from, if you want to see today's bonus content, get those Rumble rants in now. And if somebody just donates $20, then that'll unlock the bonus content so you can watch those instead of listening to commercials while I go and get Jonathan Williams from ALEC is what it's called, the American Legislative Exchange Council. So I got to send him an email, by the way. So before I can I wish I had a producer so he could do this stuff for me. But until then, that is the situation. Real quick, can I accept and start? No, can't do that. Accept and start. Can I do that? Yes, I can. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you to Rumble Studio. Rumble's exclusive apparel has finally arrived. They're now offering 20% off all purchases in the Rumble store with the discount code DROP20. If you want to support Rumble like I do, they're fighting for our free speech. They're fighting for our First Amendment. Here's the best way to do it. They've also got their own awesome merch shop, tees, sweaters, hats, and more. Go to rumble.store. It's here. That's right, rumble.store. I've got a Rumble hat myself. Make sure to enter the code DROP20 as the promo code, and you will get 20% off your entire order. Ooh, that's pretty good. I think I'm going to go over there and get me some more Rumble stuff. Also, you can take a picture of that QR code that just popped up if you're watching us over there. So check out the new Rumble store at rumble.store, and don't forget that code DROP20 to get 20% off of your entire order over at rumble.store. They've got their exclusive apparel. It's finally here. There we go. Thank you very much to rumble.com, for that ad read. Grateful to have you. All right, we're going to go to a quick commercial break. Yes, but you don't want to miss the bonus content. You're so close to unlocking it. Just $20 more. I mean, you could go to apforlibertyshop.com, buy a box of coffee, and instead of watching commercials, you could watch our incredible mini documentary. You don't even know what the theme is yet for the week. Get that unlocked. We'll be right back on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupamericashow.com.
Expanse of time, a year might seem like a mere moment, but oh, what a year it's been. In September 2022, Austin and Stephanie Peterson embarked on a journey to wake up America. They began humbly, with just 20 souls tuning in, learning, listening, and though challenges arose, like the looming shadow of YouTube demonetization, their spirit never waned. And now, thanks to you, thousands rise with the sun to join them, to listen, to engage, to be a part of a community. So here's to you, and to Wake Up America, for memories shared, for friends made, for the journey ahead, and for never, ever forgetting to rise and freedom. Happy anniversary.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message. Believe me, Austin Peterson is the best. He's got the greatest Wake Up America show I've ever seen. Whenever I tune in the mornings and watch the live stream, let me tell you, he has got the absolute best content. I love his guests. It's just a total blast to watch, and I highly endorse and recommend the Wake Up America show. It's terrific, believe me.
Is the outdoor of your home about as exciting as a library? Then spice it up and unbore your space with our custom metal signs. Crafted with love and a bit of libertarian magic, you can customize your own metal sign at ap4libertyshop.com. So head to ap4libertyshop.com, customize your own metal sign today.
Welcome to a world of vocal discovery at Peterson Voice Studio. I'm Justin Peterson, here to guide your musical journey. Envision a place where your voice reaches new heights, where every note tells a story. We embrace all singers, from the enthusiastic shower vocalists to aspiring stars, ensuring each voice finds its unique rhythm and tone. Are you ready to elevate your voice? Visit petersonvoicestudio.com and sign up for remote lessons tailored just for you. Let's begin this melodious journey together.
Tired of spending your hard-earned money on woke corporations that don't share your pro-freedom values? Fed up with sipping liberal lattes and progressive cappuccinos? Introducing Founding Flavors from AP for Liberty Shop. Get your day started with Washington's Revolutionary Roast. As robust and principled as the man himself, this blend is the shot of energy heard round the world. Or maybe you want to taste the fervor of freedom with Adams's Patriotic Perk. It's as dynamic and balanced as the U.S. Constitution, sure to awaken your spirit of liberty. For the aficionados, we've got the Jeffersonian Java, a complex mix of flavors that speaks volumes about your refined tastes. And don't forget Betsy's Liberty Lullaby, our decaf option, crafted with the same care and dedication Betsy Ross put into our Star-Spangled Banner. This blend lets you enjoy the taste of freedom anytime without losing sleep. No woke beans here, folks. Just pure, patriotic, pro-freedom flavors brewed with love for liberty. So why compromise your principles for a cup of coffee? Stand up for your values, perk up your patriotism, and start your day the American way. Get your founding flavors at apforlibertyshop.com. Welcome back to the Wake Up America show. Austin Peterson here. Thanks for sticking around through those commercials that you don't have to watch anymore, as we just unlocked the bonus content. Fantastic. That's great news. One of you just went over to apforlibertyshop.com and you picked up a couple of boxes of our exclusive Founding Flavors coffee. If you haven't tried Founding Flavors coffee, there's a reason why it's so expensive. One, because well, we can't afford to buy 5,000 boxes at a time because we're just a small operation. And two, because it is the best coffee in the United States. When you have those boxes of Founding Flavors up on your shelf, Washington's Revolutionary Roast, Adams's Patriotic Perk, Jeffersonian Java, Thomas's Painkiller, people are going to walk into your house and say, that looks amazing. Where can I get a box of that? Well, you got it at apforlibertyshop.com. And now, thanks to all your purchases and all the generous donations that you've made this morning, you've unlocked the bonus content. So after our next guest, stick around because you want to find out what the theme of this week's bonus content is. You'll have to stick around to find out what it is. Congratulations, you've unlocked the bonus content. Give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you very much for being so generous. The only problem with bringing in all that money on this podcast is that every few months, Mr. Taxman comes and takes it away. I know. Yeah, I know. For people out there who own businesses who are struggling, and, you know, certainly I've got a daughter on the way. This was a terrible time to get ripped off when Uncle Sam came and took, boy, pretty much every penny we've taken in profit. So I don't know about you, but I'm sure longing for a return to the Trump era. Remember those tax cuts that Donald Trump passed? Well, Joe Biden is threatening to let those cuts expire. Can we really stand 4 more years of this? Joining us now to discuss is the anti-tax man, Jonathan Williams from the American Legislative Exchange Council, joining us live right now. Good morning, Jonathan. Welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me, and greetings from the land of make-believe out here in Washington, D.C.
What is Joe Biden threatening to do to us all, Jonathan?
Well, he's certainly threatening to double down on that moniker of land of make-believe because, as you know, Austin, the Trump tax cuts, 2017, those momentous, first in a generation since Reagan, really, remake of the federal tax code under these complicated U.S. Senate rules are slated to go away by the end of next year if nothing is done. And Joe Biden has signaled just that despite his pledge to not raise taxes on anybody making under 400,000, right? I mean, that's kind of a laugh line these days. He is going straight ahead to say absolutely not. He would not allow those Trump tax cuts to continue if he is reelected. And so, what does that look like? That's something for all of us, Austin. It's every single one of those individual provisions of those Trump tax cuts. Now, a lot of the corporate side tax cuts, those were made permanent in the law. The little wrinkle there is those child care tax credits, the lower rates, the small business treatment, so many of those things, including the nearly demolition of the hated alternative minimum tax, that phantom tax that came to lurk. You never knew if you would owe it until you'd basically going to file your taxes. That was creeping into middle income Americans. All of those really essential pieces of tax relief go away if Congress doesn't get their act together and the president doesn't sign something by the end of next year. And, looking at the crystal ball in Washington, I think that's a pretty good bet right now that not anything good is going to happen unless we have a different set of characters in the White House and in Congress going forward.
Yeah, Jonathan, typically it's in a president's second term that they really want to enact their more bold agenda. In this instance, Joe Biden going into his second term wants to have a much more progressive agenda. And it's at a time when Americans say that they can afford at least. You wrote in your article on the Daily Caller that 2/3 of Americans say federal income taxes are already too high. Yeah. And as somebody who has a child on the way, my first child on the way, Jonathan, I'll tell you, it is a stretch writing that check 4 times a year. Apparently, I'm not alone.
Well, you're certainly not, and boy, isn't that a scary thought, Austin? If this was the conservative term of Joe Biden, what would a second term look like that's actually progressive? I mean, this is just astronomical, the kind of debt and taxes that have already been racked up on the federal credit card here in the first 4 years. So obviously, his plans for big spending are going to get much worse, and it's going to be, I think, fueled according to his plans by allowing these tax cuts to expire. One of the other elements of this, I think, is really, really important is that one of the things that's really underreported around the Trump tax cuts was the doubling of the standard deduction. So now an estimate of about 90% of Americans don't even have to go through and itemize their return anymore. They go through and take that enhanced standard deduction, really making it a much more simplified process. But that's one of those provisions that goes away. So as we just made it through tax filing season, it was brutal for me. I'm sure it was brutal for you, keeping track of all those receipts and records. That's going to be an issue for many more Americans, not just the increased tax burden at a time of high grocery prices, high gas prices, all these insidious effects of hidden taxes of inflation. It's going to be the double whammy of higher tax burdens and a much more complicated federal tax code if Joe Biden gets his way.
Now, you're working with ALEC. You guys have delivered a letter to Capitol Hill. What are you urging Congress to do here?
Well, we delivered a letter with about 350 state legislator signatures on it, including, I think, 25 from Missouri, saying, enough is enough. We've had a really rough go of it in the last several years, obviously, as an economy trying to come out of this COVID government mandated lockdowns, and then just this huge amounts of $5 trillion or more of government spending being added on, and then all of us being surprised that there's more inflation, right? So getting through this horrible period, the last thing this economy can withstand is this multi-trillion-dollar tax increase. And so our letter essentially says, let's do the right thing for America. Let's do the right thing for hardworking taxpayers all across the country and make these tax cuts permanent. It's a Washington problem that every time we pass a major tax bill, not getting into the kind of crazy details of U.S. Senate rules, but unless you have a super majority, it has to be temporary based on Senate rules. And so this happened with the Bush tax cuts, if you remember. Every substantial tax cut package that we've had has gone through this, and it's really not fair. I mean, people want permanency. They want to make sure that they know that these tax provisions that they've been used to, especially if they're small businesses and they're making investments, maybe they're buying some more of that coffee, right, and keeping that inventory. If they don't have certainty around tax provisions, that really locks up business decision-making on the small business side. So this is why ALEC legislators are so motivated. We delivered our first tranche of this letter to Chairman Jason Smith, the great ALEC alum, of course, a Missouri native and a great ALEC legislator when he was there in Jeff City. He delivered it to his office and to our members of Congress. We have about 100 members of the current Congress that are ALEC alumni members. And this we're going to continue throughout the summer. We continue to get huge interest as we travel around the country, more legislators wanting to add their names. So we fully expect by the fall, we'll have a massive letter with state legislators all across the country saying enough is enough. Let's do the right thing here for the American people.
If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. I'm Austin Peterson. We're glad and thankful to have you here. Click that like button. And if you appreciate this message of economic freedom and personal liberty, the follow button as well. So you can come back and join us 5 days a week to hear more great interviews like the one I'm conducting right now with Jonathan Williams from the American Legislative Exchange Council. We're talking a little bit about the Donald Trump tax cuts and the push by ALEC, as they're known, to try and make those tax cuts permanent. Now, I come from the liberty wing of the Republican Party, Jonathan, and people on my side tend to be a bit cranky and sometimes even a bit crotchety, maybe curmudgeonly, if you will, when it comes to a return to the Donald Trump years. They say that he spent a lot of money. Well, that certainly is true, and government spending is a tax increase eventually. But at the end of the day, the people who are paying taxes saw significant drops in the amount of federal taxes that they were paying. Middle income earners saved more than $1,500 annually. That's not peanuts for people who are middle income, Jonathan. Certainly, you can make a living podcasting, but I'm not quite rich yet. Maybe one day I'll hit the heights of fame that I would get if I was a beautiful woman. But as it is, I have to wear silly shirts and be a really good producer in order to build an audience and be able to make the kind of scratch that's necessary to build a family in an economy that's struggling with the kind of inflationary numbers that might actually take Joe Biden out of the White House. So how much do you factor that sort of the angst that people are feeling on one part, inflation, on the other part, paying, the taxes that they might be paying if Joe Biden is reelected? I mean, do you figure that if Joe Biden feels enough pressure from the public in what you're doing right now that he might actually sign a bill like this? Because there is that, tricky question of even if you got it through something like this through Congress, Joe Biden might not be willing to sign it, although he is very unpopular. So is that kind of the play here, and that he hopes that you hope that Joe Biden is looking at his approval ratings and saying, yeah, I better make these tax cuts permanent because I want to win re-election?
Well, I think it's going to be likely something that's going to play out next year with either, a new administration actually signing this into law and being excited to sign it into law, or we're going to continue to build educational awareness for Americans to say this is coming and you need to make sure that you're aware of it, because a lot of folks in Congress don't want you to know right now that those massive tax cuts are going to go away. And so it's really building this awareness as an educational campaign to the grassroots and to grass tops. State legislators across America are busy balancing their own budgets, right? I mean, it's something that 49 out of the 50 states have balanced budget requirements. And it's just a foreign concept to say, why doesn't Washington get that spending problem under check? I mean, that's a very good point that you bring up, in that, yes, this has been a bipartisan problem of overspending in Washington that has led this this scourge that we have with the hidden tax of inflation. And so I think the new administration, whoever it may be, needs to really focus on two things if we want to look at turning this American economy around. Is that, yes, we need to put the stops on overspending. That's easier said than done. I mean, it's done at the state level, and there's lots of great ways that we can point to, such as spending limits. My personal favorite is Colorado's Taxpayers' Bill of Rights, that just in the Constitution says you can't grow government or tax rates or burdens faster than population and inflation. Basically, the size of the economic pie as it's growing. Don't let government grow faster than it. Kind of common sense economics 101 right there from the states. But the other thing that we need to do, Austin, and this is why the tax cuts and making those permanent are so important, is we need real growth in America again, because those anemic jobs numbers that we've been seeing, the anemic GDP numbers that we've been seeing, that last quarter, it was 1.6% economic growth in the last quarter, and then it was revised downwards, remember, to 1.3. I mean, this is not the kind of growth that's going to get anybody out of this debt problem or the spending problem, and if we get back towards a 3% economic growth scenario that we did see through many of those quarters of the Trump administration after those tax cuts, that's the kind of thing that covers really a multitude of sins when it comes to spending. Let's all hope we can get spending in check, because we absolutely need to get spending in check, because spending equals taxation, as you correctly point out. But we also need economic growth. And unless we renew these tax cuts, we're not going to get to a 3% economic growth scenario.
Well, Jonathan, what about the Senate or the upper chamber? I mean, how is it looking in terms of convincing the upper chamber to jump onto this proposal as well?
Well, I actually think that there may be a pathway there because you do have, a nearly tied chamber at this point. You have some eccentric characters, to say the least, on both sides of the aisle. But I mean, you do have those that are up for reelection in tight races right now, like Tester in Montana and others. That are coming from very conservative states, that if you put a tax cut, in front of them to say, hey, this is an up or down vote right now, I think a lot of them are going to have to think very difficultly around, you actually want to vote against a common sense tax cut for middle class America, right? I mean, as much as Nancy Pelosi in her press release said this was a tax cut for millionaires and billionaires, Austin, as we know, is how it's played out. Those Trump tax cuts were very good for the middle class. They were very good for those with families and with children. And this is something that I think everybody, as they're thinking about the fall, is going to be very hesitant to vote against a tax cut package. Now, the big question, of course, would Chuck Schumer ever allow it to come to a vote? And I think the answer to that is pessimistically no, he's not going to, because he wants to protect those vulnerable members. Because if it did come up for up or down vote, I think you may have a majority even right now out of the United States Senate.
Jonathan, is there anything else on this topic that we might have missed that we should cover, or perhaps something that you'd like to share with our audience before we let you go today?
Well, it's one of the things that in 2017, as I was working on this, Chairman Kevin Brady from Texas, who was chairing Ways and Means and started this whole process, invited me to testify and provide our ALEC research from rich states, poor states, and what we were finding and what works at the state level. And of course, that's a big element here, is we know this just tax cut revolution that's happened. Lots of 5 states have become flat tax states in the last couple of legislative sessions. We're seeing huge gains for pro-taxpayer policy, and there's a disconnect, folks. And this is a big problem, as we're moving the needle when it comes to freedom and liberty at the state level. Washington has resisted, and that's why I think the voice of state legislators is so important here. And one element starting in 2017 that didn't get a whole lot of press out of the Washington and New York press corps, but it was so important of the tax cuts, was the limit on the so-called state and local tax deduction, the SALT deduction that was in the federal tax code, that basically allowed wealthy taxpayers in the big high tax states to write off those high taxes off of their federal returns. And guess what? All of us hardworking taxpayers from lower tax states had to actually subsidize California, New York, and New Jersey with their high spending ways. Previous to the Trump tax cuts, that was an unlimited write-off. The Trump tax cuts limited that to $10,000 annually, and it really did put pressure on those big blue states and high spenders in those states to start to recalibrate and say, well, if we can't write off those tax burdens, maybe we shouldn't be taxing and spending more at the state level. So it was a little bit under the radar, but for those of us that follow federalism and believe strongly in state autonomy and individual liberty and lower taxes, it was a huge element that really set off a wave of tax cutting at the state level that I just talked about, and in some cases even stopped blue states from raising taxes, because it took away that perverse incentive to actually write it off and have all of us subsidize the high taxes and high spending.
Well, we certainly wish you the best of luck on this, and you have our support. Is there anything that the people who are listening right now can do to help support this effort?
Well, absolutely. And go to alec.org, check out the letter. And, as you're talking with your state lawmakers, many times you'll see them at the parades. They'll be coming to your doors here in the coming months. Talk to them about this issue to make sure that they've seen the ALEC letter. We'd love to have them on the letter going forward, because having a unified voice of those of us who believe in limited government and more freedom is going to be so important, not just for this battle, but a whole lot of big battles ahead in Washington. And we can use your help with that.
Well, I'll tell you this, I've been in politics quite some time now, 20 years fighting for economic freedom and personal liberty. And for a brief time, I lived and worked in Washington, D.C. I worked for some of those Tea Party institutions, many of whom have collapsed. And there are very few conservative institutions that are still around that are actually effective, not just taking donor dollars and talking a game about limited government, but actually getting the job done. And the American Legislative Exchange Council is one of those institutions. So I definitely recommend that our listeners and viewers find out more about what people like Jonathan Williams are doing at ALEC. Check them out online as well on x.com and visit their website, because they are fighting the fight on the front lines for liberty. Jonathan, thank you very much for your time today. Hope you have a great week, sir.
Well, thank you. Always good to see you.
You as well. That's Jonathan Williams. Why don't we give him a round of applause? Great job there. We always love interviews like that. When we talk about economic liberty, that's what we mean. Lower taxes. But also, I think we need a little bit of lower spending, if you know what I'm saying. let's hold the Trump administration accountable for that if they do retake it. Thank you very much, Andy, for heading on over to apforlibertyshop.com. You got yourself a sweet Ron Swanson. History began on the 4th of July, 1776. Everything before that was a mistake. Yes. Amen. Oh, yes. With 687 people watching us live over on x.com and 200 people watching us live over on rumble.com, that's 678 or about 900. You know what? Let's just round up and call it an even 1,000 this morning watching. I would be remiss if I didn't remind you about our sponsor, Preserve Gold, who also is a big believer in economic liberty. And that's why they sponsor the Wake Up America show. They said Austin Peterson has an audience of people who care about the things that we care about. When we're talking about tax cuts, spending cuts, and fighting inflation, Preserve Gold is on top of things. And they want to help educate you on how to preserve your economic liberty into the future and maybe even secure it for your posterity so that you don't have to wager your life, your fortune, and your sacred honor on the altar of fighting against the tyranny of the Joe Biden administration. Just by buying gold and silver coins from Preserve Gold, you're taking a step forward towards preserving your financial future if you visit them by texting the word liberty to 50505. I've got the link to Preserve Gold as well in the comments, or excuse me, in the show's description underneath the Wake Up America show's description here at rumble.com. Click on that link and that will take you to the same place. What are they going to do when it takes you to that link? Well, what they'll do is they'll send you a little sign-up form so that you can send them your information. And what are you going to get out of it? They're going to send you a gold and silver information packet in order to teach you how to invest in gold and silver. They're transparent. They'll tell you about all of their pricing, schedule, and structure, answer any questions that you might have, and help you to get more educated on what it means to invest in gold or silver. So text the word liberty to 50505. Again, text the word liberty to 50505. That way you guys can learn more about how to invest in gold or silver. All right. Well, we did unlock the bonus content. We shall play the bonus content as we go. It's been a fantastic show. As usual, another great Monday morning. I hope that you enjoyed it. I'm grateful to have you as an audience member. If you liked the show, don't forget, click that like button. If you're on X, you got to click the heart button, I think. Nobody can see the likes anymore. But repost the show so that other people can enjoy it as well. And I'd love to hear from you. You can send us a text anytime at that number on your screen, 573-319-1586. Again, the text line is 573-319-1586. Thank you for all your support. Happy Father's Day belated to all the dads out there. Thank you for all of those kind text messages that you sent us over the weekend. Not quite an official dad yet, but definitely an unofficial one. Any day now, between now and the 29th, I think probably little baby Hazel's going to be here. Who knows? Maybe even the 4th of July. Wouldn't that be wonderful? All right. Well, we're definitely going to see you guys here tomorrow. Don't forget to exit through the Grift Shop at apforlibertyshop.com. Enjoy the mini documentary bonus content that you all unlocked, and we'll see you here tomorrow on the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com. Ooh, what's it going to be? On the Wake Up America show, we look at political or philosophical paradoxes. Let's learn about these concepts together, debate, and discuss them so we can expand our knowledge to make ourselves more enlightened and better advocates for our ideas. Today we consider the paradox of tolerance. Karl Popper's paradox of tolerance has recently garnered significant attention. This interest arises as Americans grapple with the issue of neo-Nazis in our society. While tolerating intolerant views seems appealing, it can also be perilous. Popper addressed this fear, stating that unlimited tolerance could lead to the disappearance of tolerance itself. If we tolerate the intolerant without defending a tolerant society, the intolerant could destroy tolerance entirely. Popper did not suggest suppressing every expression of intolerant philosophies. Rational arguments and public opinion can often counter such views. Suppression should be a last resort, used only when those views pose a direct threat through violence or other means. Unfortunately, both far-right and far-left groups have misinterpreted Popper's ideas. The far right claims that tolerance itself is intolerant, justifying their persecution of others.
They mistakenly believe this makes them morally superior. This is a gross misreading of Popper. A liberal society defending itself from violence is not comparable to groups seeking to destroy it. Liberal societies prioritize rational thought, open debate, and a legal system allowing even offensive beliefs to be explored. Violence is only a last resort for liberal societies, used defensively when other methods fail. In contrast, illiberal groups often resort to violence first. Popper's paradox highlights a significant moral difference between these approaches. The far left also misreads Popper, believing a tolerant society should not tolerate intolerance. However, Popper never advocated for suppressing intolerant speech without cause. He believed rational arguments and public opinion should counter such views. Popper did not support laws against hate speech, considering them unwise. Intolerance, in his view, should only be deployed in self-defense against imminent threats, not merely because intolerant ideas are uncomfortable or offensive. A close reading of Popper's work, especially The Open Society and Its Enemies, shows his commitment to reasoned argument and pluralism. His consideration of violence appears only in a footnote, with clear disdain for its use. Liberals must prioritize reason and argument over violence. Deviating from this principle risks aligning with our enemies in methods, thus conceding the far right's charge of hypocrisy. Occasionally, self-defense may seem inconsistent with philosophical ideals. Popper acknowledged potential inconsistencies in liberal sovereignty, stemming from historical confusion about the state's role. His paradox aimed to highlight this issue while supporting limited state intervention in social life. Popper's views align more with classical liberals like F.A. Hayek than with extremists on either end of the spectrum. Misrepresenting him as a supporter of hate speech laws or persecution distorts his philosophy. The paradox of tolerance is useful but rare in practice. In extreme cases, self-defense might superficially resemble intolerance. However, focusing too much on this similarity can lead to misunderstanding Popper's broader message. Overall, Popper's paradox encourages defending tolerance without resorting to the same intolerant methods we oppose. Rational debate and public opinion should be our primary tools, using force only when absolutely necessary to preserve a tolerant society.
Hey guys, don't forget that Stephanie's new Hustling and Homemaking video premieres today on AP for Liberty.
On the Wake Up.
Austin, please hit the right button. Head on over to ap4libertyshop.com right now to view Stephanie's video debuting in 5 minutes. Her 3-ingredient strawberry jam video over at ap4libertyshop.com. That's AP, the number 4, ap4libertyshop.com. Head over there right now and click to watch Stephanie's newest episode of Hustling and Homemaking, her new show featuring her stories balancing pregnancy, motherhood, homemaking, and keeping a career on the side. Follow along with Steffi's adventures in hustling and homemaking. Click to watch, and I'll see you there in 5 minutes on the Wake Up America show. Bye, guys.
Expanse of time, a year might seem like a mere moment, but oh, what a year it's been. In September 2022, Austin and Stephanie Peterson embarked on a journey to wake up America. They began humbly, with just 20 souls tuning in, learning, listening, and though challenges arose, like the looming shadow of YouTube demonetization, their spirit never waned. And now, thanks to you, thousands rise with the sun to join them, to listen, to engage, to be a part of a community. So here's to you, and to Wake Up America, for memories shared, for friends made, for the journey ahead, and for never, ever forgetting to rise and freedom. Happy anniversary.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message. Believe me, Austin Peterson is the best. He's got the greatest Wake Up America show I've ever seen. Whenever I tune in the mornings and watch the live stream, let me tell you, he has got the absolute best content. I love his guests. It's just a total blast to watch, and I highly endorse and recommend the Wake Up America show. It's terrific, believe me.
Is the outdoor of your home about as exciting as a library? Then spice it up and unbore your space with our custom metal signs. Crafted with love and a bit of libertarian magic, you can customize your own metal sign at ap4libertyshop.com. So head to ap4libertyshop.com, customize your own metal sign today.
Welcome to a world of vocal discovery at Peterson Voice Studio. I'm Justin Peterson, here to guide your musical journey. Envision a place where your voice reaches new heights, where every note tells a story. We embrace all singers, from the enthusiastic shower vocalists to aspiring stars, ensuring each voice finds its unique rhythm and tone. Are you ready to elevate your voice? Visit petersonvoicestudio.com and sign up for remote lessons tailored just for you. Let's begin this melodious journey together.
Tired of spending your hard-earned money on woke corporations that don't share your pro-freedom values? Fed up with sipping liberal lattes and progressive cappuccinos? Introducing Founding Flavors from AP for Liberty Shop. Get your day started with Washington's Revolutionary Roast. As robust and principled as the man himself, this blend is the shot of energy heard round the world. Or maybe you want to taste the fervor of freedom with Adams's Patriotic Perk. It's as dynamic and balanced as the U.S. Constitution, sure to awaken your spirit of liberty. For the aficionados, we've got the Jeffersonian Java, a complex